Less than a week to go of the January transfer window, and it looks like a couple of players are on their way in to Manchester United. In Patrick Dorgu, a deal looks like it's nearly there as I record this. The might of Lecce have caved in by the looks of it for under their 40 million euro asking price, and it looks like United have shaved off a few mil. As I record this, I don't know exactly the number. I can only go by numbers that I have as I record this, but it does look as though a little win has been achieved there, and hopefully that's a new player that is on his way in to the football club this week. Ayden Heaven is the other one from Arsenal, promising young defender who is the second Arsenal youth player in the space of a year or so to join Manchester United after they've plucked Chido Obi Martin out of Arsenal's academy. He's scoring goals for fun in the Arsenal or in the United youth teams at the moment, and hopefully we can see a repeat or maybe a little bit better out of this lad, Ayden Heaven, who is talked up as potentially being on the fringes of the first team. I'll talk about those two players in a little bit more depth on this podcast, and also talk about Ruben Amorim versus Marcus Rashford, because obviously that is an ongoing battle of words. Maybe words from one side, or it depends if you want to take Marcus Rashford's interview with Henry Winter from just a few weeks ago saying he wants a new challenge into case. But it looks like Rashford's career at Manchester United is over. I will say that. Will we see him get a move before the end of the window? Maybe. Who knows? But as it stands, as I record this, it doesn't look like there's anything in the works or anything likely as it stands. But that situation with Marcus Rashford does not look tolerable on both sides at the moment. I'll offer my thoughts on what Amorim said and that situation in general on this podcast as well. This is the Promised Land podcast with me, Scott Saunders, talking all things Manchester United. Please subscribe to the show on Apple and Spotify. Please give us a 5-star review, leave a comment as well, and a subscribe on YouTube as well. The Promised Land of Manchester United podcast. Like the video, subscribe, leave a comment as well, and get in touch with me on social media at @Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and on TikTok. If you do get in touch on TikTok, I don't know. I'm also on Blue Sky as well. The link is in the description of this episode if you'd like to follow me there. There's plenty going on in terms of stuff on the pitch as well. United, I haven't recorded since the win at Fulham. There's stuff going on with the stadium as well. And I understand that sentiment at the moment is down. It's poor. It's awful. And I do get it. A statement from Must has come out in the last 48 hours or so after I've recorded this, and fully justified. I understand. And I completely agree that the fans should not be the ones feeling this in the pocket. But I do understand perhaps more than the sentiment that I see online. And I do try and explain on the podcast the difficulties of what Ineos have come into and what they have to deal with. This is not 600 million a year plowed into the first team, or $1 billion in the space of a year plowed into the first team, full on facelift. This is a sustainable approach to make United profitable again, because they are not at the moment. And it will require patience and it will require smarter decisions. And that is the way that I would have always preferred it. But there are some things as well that I obviously don't agree with that Ineos have been putting forward. But I do try and strike a little bit more of a balance on this podcast in terms of, the sentiment that I see online and how Ineos are, like I often joke about it, just another Glazer. They could not be farther from it. Even while they have struck a deal to get them into the club and the Glazers remain there, what Ineos are trying to do is turn the football club around and make better decisions, be smarter, turn the club profitable. And look, that will understandably mean some difficult decisions, and it will mean that United have to bite the bullet for a little while. But hopefully in the end, in the long term, United will start reaping the rewards and things will get easier. Things aren't too easy on the pitch at the moment. United are 12th in the league. 12th in the league. They do have a Europa League game coming up on Thursday night. If United win that, or even if they draw, potentially, hopefully United get into the top 8 and don't have to play a qualifying or playoff round for the Europa League last 16. And fingers crossed. It's funny, actually, because it doesn't really feel like this at the moment, but United have had positive results in 4 of their last 5 games. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. A win on penalties over Arsenal, 3 wins as well in different competitions. I will just dig this up for you. I will just dig this up for you. Yes, there's a penalty win over Arsenal in the FA Cup, a win over Southampton, a win over Rangers, and a win at Fulham. Obviously, that one home defeat to Brighton as well really set United back quite a bit. But hey, look, if you look on the bright side, and I do try and look on the bright side, even though it's really difficult to do so at the moment, that's 4 positive results in the last 5, even though performances are god-awful. And I will admit that. I will sit here and say this is not a lot of fun to be following this team around at the moment. It's not a lot of fun to be talking about this team at the moment and all the troubles that they do have. But hopefully I can try and bring some balance to the conversation, and hopefully you like a bit of a different take from this podcast. That's what I try and offer up. Anyway, please let me know if you do like it. If you don't like it, I asked for some feedback on the last episode that I recorded. Plenty of positive, plenty of negative. And look, keep it coming. Keep getting in touch. But I will say that I think this is going to be me for a while. So if you don't like it, then, that's just the case. I will try and bring on some friends, some colleagues in the next few weeks. But for the most part, I think this is just going to be me and my ramblings on United. So if you like it, then continue. If you don't, then I guess that's that in it. But anyway, let's talk about the transfer business that United are doing. Ayden Heaven to start with. Now, he's been talked up potentially as being on the fringes of the first team. It looks like he's a big lad, tall lad, good feet on him. Technical ability looks pretty good, quite raw from what I understand, but will require a lot of work. But I think he's meant to be on the fringes of the first team if he ends up joining, or when he ends up joining, and is a centre back, left-footed, and could be the understudy or one of the understudies for Lisandro Martinez, who scored the winner and looks like one of United's most proficient attacking outlets in recent weeks, which is just a little bit weird. But hey, maybe he fits the profile. Maybe he can be developed. And this is what I wanted to get across. United have made so many poor decisions in the transfer window over the last few years that they are at the point where there's not a lot of wiggle room. So I think what we're seeing out of this recruitment team now is identification of good young talent, getting them in on relatively cheap deals or opportunistic deals. For example, in Heaven's case, he's been on the verge of signing a professional contract, had interest from the likes of Barcelona, Eintracht Frankfurt. Arsenal tried to hold him down as well with another contract, but United are the ones, as it stands, as it looks, as I record this, that have reached a deal for him. And it looks like he will be joining. And United there's been a lot of things going wrong at United over the last few years, and I'd be the first one to tell you about those things. Recruitment is one of the worst things that they've been getting wrong. Is probably one of the chief reasons for United being in the position that they're in. But I think this different approach to transfers is going to end up beneficial for the football club in the long term, whether the likes of Chido Obi Martin, Sekou Kone, Ayden Heaven, Diego Leon, all of these players, and I'm sure there's a couple more as well, all of these players, if they hit their potential and they can be first team ready and they can be used in the first team, then that's fantastic. If they don't quite reach that level and you're signing them for relatively small fees, in Diego Leon's case, I think it's around 5 million, 7 million euros-ish. If he ends up not being good enough, hopefully they play at such a level and such a good point. Maybe they go out on loan to another club to get first team ready. If they develop for a few years and then deem not good enough, at least maybe United can end up turning a profit on those players to other clubs at lower levels. We will see. I've seen that's been getting a little bit of stick, that approach to within the community. I don't understand that personally. I think it's something that football clubs have to do nowadays, especially when you're in the financial case that United are in. It's really, really bleak at the moment, and United need to get, as I said a few weeks ago, they need to establish a process of decision-making, identify talent a lot better, start striking deals which are more beneficial to the football club than caving in all the time to the demands of the seller, and make that a series. Smarter decision after smarter decision after smart decision after smart decision. Eventually, you make better decisions, you eventually break habits, and eventually you can move forward. And look, United's position at the moment, as you can tell by United's inability to offload the likes of Casemiro, Marcus Rashford, who I'm sure that everybody would just love it if those deals were done. But when United are handing out, those are the two highest earning players at the football club at the moment, and neither of them are playing. You know, that is not the way that you build a sustainable football club, and you have a football club that is there, that is sustainable, turning profits, and is healthy at the end of the day. Whether United end up getting either of those two players out the door or both players out the door in the next week, we'll wait and see. I'll definitely talk about it on the podcast if that happens. But as it stands, it doesn't look like there's anything in case. But as we get closer to the end of the transfer window, which is 6 days away, as I record this, as we get near to the end, maybe something will come up pretty quickly. But Casemiro has been in first team squads, barely used, barely seen. And I've got some quotes from Ruben Amorim, which I'm sure have gone round by the time you're listening to this, but I've just spotted them. He was speaking to a Portuguese journalist, I believe, about Casemiro and about Marcus Rashford, or not specific to them, but about his approach to the first team. That is not like getting players for big money and putting them on massive contracts, which no other club is able to afford or to take on. In the end, United, they have to work out at United, otherwise they can't shift them. And that's those two players, the latest in a long line of players that United have had to take hits on or have had trouble offloading. That behavior needs to change. And I think with the likes of Ayden Heaven and Patrick Dorgu, maybe things are changing. Now, in Dorgu's case, we've talked about him on the podcast over recent weeks. Looks like he is a perfect fit for that left wing back role, although he is playing for, I think, the worst team in Serie A at the moment. They lost 4-0 at home to Inter at the weekend. Lecce, I believe, are bottom of the league table in Serie A. And look, you'd usually think that, oh, well, you know, what are United getting in a player there? But we'll see. You know, I think that these are what we need to rely on here is United's scouting network. It's been good for a few years. It's just United haven't really acted on it. Taken smart decisions, like I say. But this player has a lot of talent from what I've seen. He looks a perfect fit, left-footed, pretty athletic, quite technical, and needs work, obviously. But I think that left wing-back role is so important to bringing more out of a Ruben Amorim system and Ruben Amorim's team. Getting forward, adding to attacks, making an attacking 5 rather than attacking 3. You know, I think having the athleticism and the ability to cover a lot of ground, I think Dorgu has it. I think it's an absolute necessity in that wing-back role. So as it stands, I will try and dig this up to see if there's anything different that has come out since I've started recording the podcast. Doesn't look like it from what I see. But it does look as though United have struck a deal under Lecce's asking price. Lecce wanted 40 million euros and were holding out for it. United put a couple of bids in and had them rejected. But as it stands, and as I record this, United it looks like they're going to find a deal somewhere around 35 million quid, add-ons included. It's been reported in other places up to 37.5. As I record this, like I say, I don't have the final figure, but it does look as though it's going to come in under Lecce's asking price. And I think United want as little as possible, fully committed and fully coming off the books, you know, or fully committed in terms of like guaranteed transfer money. I think add-ons, whether they're easily achievable or whether they're not, I think make a difference to the bottom line, the club's bottom line. So I think United have struck a deal or are getting to striking a deal which is more suitable for them. And I think, look, if Dorgu can get in over the next few days before the league game against Crystal Palace, we'll see whether he ends up, I doubt he'll start the game, obviously. But if he can integrate into the first team, understand the system a bit more, and then offer United a natural left wing-back option because that is what he is and that is what he will be, then I think hopefully that'll be quite beneficial. United are so far off, I think they're 12 points off top 4 in the table at the moment, midway through the season. Can United make that up? I don't think there's any suggestion to say that they will, even though they've had positive results in 4 of their last 5 games, which is really weird considering the sentiment around the team at the moment and the awful performances as well. But I think you look at the Europa League and you think that is the way in to the Champions League. If United can build a team which can, I don't want to write the league campaign off like this, but There are lots of teams ahead of them. It's going to be a big mess. United will have to hit a run of form we've not seen them hit for God knows how long, if they're to even get in with a chance of getting in the top 5, because it does look like 5 teams from England, given the coefficients, will get Champions League football next season. The top 5, I say, does look like that'll be the case. But United are way off. United are way off at the moment, and barring some miraculous recovery, it does seem as though they should do the Jose Mourinho and put a lot of eggs in that Europa League basket, because winning that competition, which United, as I say again, are the favourites to win, put the eggs in that basket, try and nail the performances in that competition, and use the remainder of the league season as practice. No, it sounds like it sounds a little bit silly to write off a league campaign like that. But I think the point I'm trying to make is it not smarter, given the league position that United are in at the moment, to try and build for the longer term rather than throwing a lot of money at the team in this window to potentially go up to 8th? I don't really think that's the case. That's the smartest way to do it. I think a longer term approach, given how bad the season's gone so far, is probably the most sensible way to go, and target getting the performances in Europe right. Hopefully, United will go to Bucharest in the next few days, confirm that they have a place in the top 8, not have to play a playoff, wipe 2 games out of their season, gives you more time to train on the training pitch, and hopefully things can start with Dorgu and with a natural left wing back in place. Hopefully we can start to see a difference in the team, because I think the wing backs are so absolutely crucial to the progress that this team makes. And that's why that is the first major signing under Ruben Amorim. It's been a problem position for a while, but if United can have the right personnel for Ruben Amorim's system coming in as soon as possible, hopefully we can start to see better performances on the pitch. And God knows they've been pretty awful for a few weeks now. I haven't done a podcast since the Fulham game, but I had some commitments at home, so I haven't been able to record since then. I haven't been able to, I haven't been by my microphone or whatever, so this podcast is a little delayed, but I am back now. And from what I understand, I didn't see the Fulham game in full, but from what I understand, it was an absolute drab, awful game. Rasmus Højlund had some problems, so but I decided I don't want to go back and watch it, just because do I really want to sit through that, given what everybody said about it? No, not really. I very rarely miss United games, or in this case, I had to. Now the commitments, but I'm back now, and I'll be talking about the bigger picture a little bit, and I'll get back into recording and match reactions from Thursday's game and through Sunday as well. But yeah, I think that's the approach United need to take, and hopefully Dorgu, for a respectable deal, can come in and integrate into the first team over the next few weeks. And just United have to move forward, but I think the steps will be slow. The important thing is that United are churning wins at the moment. Some of the performances recently have been god-awful, but fingers crossed, better form can be on its way. And look, I'll be talking more about the Marcus Rashford versus Ruben Amorim situation in just a second. I'll be back soon, just after this. Look, maybe I'm a little bit late to the party here, because it is about 48 hours as I record this since he said these lines. But I think the breakdown in Ruben Amorim and Marcus Rashford's relationship is pretty clear and obvious to see. As I record this, I'm reading from Jamie Jackson in The Guardian that Ruben Amorim and Marcus Rashford are no longer on speaking terms at Manchester United, and he will only be addressed in squad training or in the squad generally as a group. And Marcus Rashford hasn't played since mid-December for United, and we're nearly in February. So his absence has been stark. I understand that this is a very sensitive situation for a lot of people because of what Marcus Rashford represents. He is obviously somebody that's come through the academy, has scored a hell of a lot of goals for United, is probably United's most efficient attacking force in terms of the forwards that United have at the moment, and has been in his short appearances under Amorim as well. But I'll just run over this quote again. Asked about why Marcus Rashford was not in the squad at Fulham. It's the same situation for every player. If you do the maximum, if you do the right things, we can use everyone. You can see it today. Sunday on the bench. We miss a little bit of pace to go to change the game, to move some pieces, but I prefer it like that. I will put Vital, the 63-year-old or 62-year-old goalkeeping coach, on the bench before I put a player that doesn't give the maximum every day, and I will not change that. Now, those quotes went around like wildfire, and I understand why, because that is damning, is really damning on Marcus Rashford, and understand that there's a lot of people who want to see Rashford reintegrated in the team. But for me, I'm pretty sure you're going to know which side I sit on here. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little while, but I was like it on the Ten Hag versus Sancho debate, and obviously that didn't go too well for Erik Ten Hag in the end. I think that was the moment that kind of lost him with a lot of squad members, maybe including Marcus Rashford, after exiling Jadon Sancho because he didn't train properly. It seems as though my take on this is that Ruben Amorim is right. And it's time for me. It's time that culture, effort, application, all of the fundamentals that go into a first team that your head coach wants to, like, the most important things for Ruben Amorim and his team is commitment, run your lungs out, maximum effort, maximum commitment. If you end the game laying on the ground because you're exhausted, and that's what I want to see. That's the kind of attitude and application that I think Ruben Amorim wants from all of his players, every single one of them. And if he's gone and said that, I'll quote it again, I will put Vital before I put a player that doesn't give the maximum every day, and I will not change that. That is so damning about Marcus Rashford. It is so damning. And in the end, all that matters is Ruben Amorim's opinion in this case. Rashford was obviously dropped for the Manchester derby, which United ended up winning, alongside Alejandro Garnacho. And obviously, whether he ends up leaving the club, I don't know yet. Matthias Tell from Bayern Munich, who Chelsea want, has told Bayern tonight that he wants to leave. So maybe Chelsea end up going for him, and Garnacho doesn't end up leaving at all. Maybe Napoli don't go for him either, or find a deal for him. We'll see. Maybe he ends up staying. But Garnacho was in the same case as Marcus Rashford in that Manchester derby. And now Amorim's talking like this about Marcus Rashford, but Garnacho's starting matches. Something seems to have clicked with Garnacho. Something seems to have tweaked in him. Maybe he's doing something different. Maybe his application is right. Maybe his attitude's changed. I don't know. But he's certainly doing enough for Ruben Amorim to pick him. Maybe there's certain conspiracies or certain suggestions that Marcus Rashford is on too big a contract that we can't really, is in our best interest to offload him. Potentially that's the case. But I don't think, you look at Ruben Amorim, and he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy to lie or to have an ulterior motive at all. Now, I'm not sure whether, if you're listening to this or watching this, you think that, but I certainly don't. He certainly said that he doesn't lie. He won't lie to the press. He said, I won't lie to anybody. I won't lie to my wife. All of this kind of thing. That's the kind of guy he is. He does not lie. He tells the truth. And sometimes he's too open and too honest about it, probably to his detriment, but I like it. And being as frank and honest as he was about Marcus Rashford and his position in the team, it was damning. But at the same time, I think we're at a point now where, for me, the culture and the attitude among the playing staff at Manchester United for way too long has been wrong. And it doesn't really matter who you are. I think you need to get on board. You need to show your maximum every single day, as Ruben Amorim says. In matches, we've seen plenty of clips of Rashford in matches not really applying himself to the maximum. Not saying it's under Amorim or whatever, but it doesn't surprise me that, given what I've seen from Rashford under previous managers, it doesn't surprise me that Amorim feels like this about him. It doesn't seem like anything's changed. But then the important thing to stress here is, look, Rashford could leave on loan probably at best before the end of the month or before the end of the transfer window. He could end up leaving. But as much as I don't think at the moment that Marcus Rashford will play for United again, because I don't, that's just the way that it stands. I'm sure that if they sat down and they spoke, and maybe they've done this already, but if Amorim demanded, this is what I want to see from you. No, we know that Rashford's gone out in the past, and sometimes before matches that was under Erik ten Hag. You know, that's been pretty much confirmed. If Rashford changes his behavior and his application and effort, I'm sure that if Ruben Amorim sees enough from him and they speak and sort it out, that there's a way back in for Marcus Rashford, like there was for Alejandro Garnacho. I'm sure that there is. But it doesn't look very likely at the moment. And it's so sad. It's incredibly sad. For me, Marcus Rashford on song is brilliant. He really is. And I know there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast as well that are pro Rashford and want to see him in the first team. I want to see him in the first team as well. I do. But fundamentals have to come first. And I was like this with the former manager as well, because as much as Erik ten Hag had his faults, he often came out and said he wanted his team to run into the ground. All of these fundamentals in terms of effort were things that he valued as well. And look, that didn't work out in the end. I won't talk about it anymore. But Ruben Amorim wants to see maximum effort out of all of his players. And if you're not giving it, then, you know, you don't play. Could be a common instance between Rashford and Casemiro that neither of them are playing because of the massive wages that they're on. But at the same time, I think you look at Rashford and you see what Amorim said, and you think that he's not doing enough to show Ruben Amorim that he deserves to play in Amorim's eyes. And I just think with Casemiro on the other side, he physically isn't able to do what Ruben Amorim wants him to do on a football pitch. I think that it's as clear as that. And there's an interview that he's given Ruben Amorim. I'm sure you might have seen this by now. He's been speaking to Fred Caldera about the team. And I'll read this out for you because this is through I think he's a Portuguese journalist. Whether you've seen these or not, I'm sure by the time you listen to this, maybe they've made British media. But I'll read these out. I don't want to give messages to anyone, he said when asked specifically about Rashford and potential messages via that situation to the whole squad. I'm very clear about what the players have to do. I'm demanding in certain things, but then I'm a coach like everyone else. There are just certain red lines that I feel that for a group to win games and titles, you have to follow a criteria. And so if there's no such criteria, then it's all very subjective. And there are certain things that we have to be very clear with the players. That's just it. I don't want to send messages to anyone. So I think that there is a follow-up on what he said about Marcus Rashford in that post-match press conference. And I think he's just trying to say that he has red lines, but he has fundamentals that everybody has to meet because that's the way that he thinks he can win football matches. I don't think it's any more sinister than that, personally. He was then asked about Casemiro as well. And like I said in that moment just now, I think with Rashford, it's an application thing. With Casemiro, it's a physical thing and a physical ability thing. So Casemiro has barely played. Toby Collier's gone ahead of him in the first team pecking order or in the squad pecking order. Great clearance off the line by Collier the other day, by the way. But you can see what Toby Collier offers in that midfield. It's smart in the sense of good positioning to clear that off the line. But I think the energy is so important in that midfield area. And Collier is probably a better fit than Casemiro. Well, he is a better fit given because he's playing. On Casemiro, in that same interview, he said, sometimes it's a lot of that in terms of a personal moment, but it's also a player's moment. We understand that Casemiro has other things nowadays. The intelligence that he has, the understanding of the game, understanding where the ball is going to fall. But we're in a league that I can see, even in European competitions, the difference in intensity is big. And so I feel that this team also needs players with a very high intensity. So it explains that Casemiro situation right there. And sometimes we don't have that. And sometimes that difference in characteristic can lead one player or another to play. Even the fact that the group has a certain characteristic as a group, I needed some players in certain positions with a slightly different pace. But we all know the quality Casemiro has and everything he's won. And so I have nothing to say about that. It's just a choice. So he's explained himself, and I don't think it's any more sinister than what he's been saying. I think it's just you get in on merit and you get in based on your physical capabilities. I think Marcus Rashford has the physical capability to play in this team, but isn't showing the application. And that is more damning for Ruben Amorim than having physical limitations. But Casemiro isn't playing because of the physical limitations that he has. So, look, I think United, obviously, these two players are the two highest earners at the club. And Amorim's comments probably don't help United in the situation of trying to sell them. I've seen that argument go around. I've seen suggestions like that go around. But at the same time, nobody's biting on these players anyway. They're not exactly inundated with approaches at the moment, are they? Because of the contracts that they have. So I think Ruben Amorim, what Amorim is looking at here is just, I want to find and use players who are the best fits for my team. The sporting directors or the Jason Wilcox and those kinds of people, technical directors, Christopher Vivell as well. I think he's more on recruitment. But in Jason Wilcox's case, I'm sure that he is looking for different clubs to come in for these two players. And the suggestion has been there over the last few days than what Amorim is saying. It devalues the two players that United have. Potentially it does. But at the same time, Amorim only... this is probably the way it should be, to be fair. His only interest is getting the best results for the team. He needs to be given the tools by the recruitment team to be able to do that. That's how a football structure should work. But what United have at the moment is two players on massive wages. Casemiro's case, he came in for a massive transfer fee 2.5 years ago as well. But those two players are on massive wages. And simply put, there are no other clubs in Europe or in the world outside of the clubs in Saudi that are looking or able to stomach a wage of over £300,000 a week. Because those two players are on that. That's just the case. And that, as much as you can talk about Ruben Amorim devaluing them with what he's saying, it's United's fault. It's the fault of the former recruitment team in the first place that these players were given these contracts. Whatever deal United end up getting towards the end of the month, if they get them, or in the summer, or maybe Casemiro is maybe has to see out his entire contract. I don't know. That would be the worst case scenario, obviously. But he obviously can't play in this team, according to what his head coach is saying. And look, it's on the recruitment team and the people who deal with transfers to find players, or these two players, new destinations for them to go in a beneficial deal for the club. It's just so difficult to find a beneficial deal for the football club at the moment because of the wages that they're on. And that's what's been killing United. That's one of the things that's been killing United for so long, for so many years. Poor decisions, massive wage bills. As I say, one of the biggest ports of call is finding a way to trim the wage bill. Massive, massive deal. Finding wiggle room on PSR, clearing the wage bill, clearing the outgoings. It will give United more flexibility. And maybe then, after United get their wage bill down and raise a bit of money through player sales or through temporary loans that are 84% covered salary-wise, in Anthony's case, it cost 86 million quid. It's all about small gains and marginal gains. That was the word, wasn't it? From Dave Brailsford. That's what it's all about at the moment. But I think United have to take those small steps out of the mess that they're in order to start taking bigger steps in terms of first-team investment. There's a lot of problems that they have at the moment, and Casemiro and Marcus Rashford's contracts and lack of playing time are two of them. But hey, let's see what happens over the next few days. I'll just, before I wrap up, I'll just check to see if there's anything. There is. As I record this now, we have confirmation from Fabrizio Romano. Verbal agreement in place with Lecce. 30 million euros plus 5 in add-ons, not guaranteed. So that is very much under what Lecce wanted. It's a difference of 5 million. 10 million in the case of if they're not add-on guarantees. Lecce were holding out for 40 million euros. And United have committed 30 million plus 5 in add-ons not guaranteed. So that is a small win. And yes, it's taken a bit of time for them to get there. But at the same time, very, very important that United find small wins and don't show that they're that club anymore that overpays or that falls into demands that a football club that are smaller than them and even weaker in financial terms than them don't give in. It takes a little bit more time, but they found a deal for Patrick Dorgu as I record this and as I finish up the podcast. I did talk about him at the start of the show, so I'm sure you've heard that already by now. If you didn't and you're catching this at the end for whatever reason, then you can go back through the podcast and listen to that section. But that's good news. That is good news. Patrick Dorgu on his way in. 30 million plus 5 in add-ons not guaranteed. And it looks like Patrick Dorgu is the first official, first team signing for Ruben Amorim. And I think, hopefully, that's then 2 players in Ahmad, who I've been vocal on Ahmad playing in the 10 role, but we saw Kobbie Mainoo maybe play in there for a little bit at the weekend, and maybe that's the right position for him. And Ahmad's right position is right wing back, because in terms of those wing back positions, I think it's pretty clear that United need attacking players in those positions. So, hey, let's see what happens. Maybe that's the way that the first team goes over the next few weeks. And we'll see. I've mentioned Matthias Tell in this podcast. If United, let's see how that develops. If United need another forward and there's doubts over Garnacho and Marcus Rashford's potentially on his way out, United will be really light in those attacking areas as well. We know that they got problems scoring goals, so maybe there'll be another player on the way in. I don't know yet. There's 6 days left as I record this of the transfer window, but United are getting busy in it with a couple of players coming in by the looks and lots of uncertainty as well. But let me know about anything that I've said in this podcast today. Get in touch in the comment section on YouTube and on social media. Please subscribe to the YouTube show, the Promised Land of Manchester United podcast. Leave a comment, like the video. Get in touch with me on social media as well at _ Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And also subscribe to the show on audio. Yeah, Apple and Spotify. Please get in touch and subscribe to the show there. You can listen there if you're out on a walk or whatever, or if you're in the car driving to work and you like listening to podcasts on the way in. You can get me on Spotify and Apple as well, and any other audio provider that you may use. But anyway, I will be back in the next few days to talk about other things that are happening with Manchester United. But as it stands, Patrick Dorgu is going to be the big first signing under Ruben Amorim, and that is on its way and happening. So fingers crossed he makes a difference in the next few weeks, and we can see a better Manchester United on the pitch. Anyway, I've been Scott Saunders. Until next time, if there's anything I missed today, let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to talk about it in the next few episodes as well. But thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching. This has been the Promised Land podcast from me, Scott Saunders. Until next time.